So do you guys think that there's anybody in the NBA bubble right now that's thinking, man, I kind of hope this is how next season is too? Obviously, they're hoping that the world is going to go back to normal and we're not going to have a bubble in order to have the NBA. But do you think there are any players that think that this is the greatest thing that's ever happened, that all they get to do is just play basketball in the same little campus with all these NBA teams? I feel like it's possible that somebody's thinking that way. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're talking about the NBA's team of the future, the Dallas Mavericks. This is a team with an incredibly bright future. They look to be a team that is going to be competing for NBA championships for years to come, and this is just another season in that right direction for this group. And now we're going to talk about what they could possibly do this offseason, and more importantly in the 2021 offseason as well, to set themselves up to be that championship contender that they're on pace to be over the next couple of years. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload basically every single day, and if you're enjoying the content, then leaving a like rating is a great way to let me know, and it helps out the video a ton as well. With that said, let's go and get started. So the Dallas Mavericks season unfortunately did recently end in a first round series loss to the LA Clippers. But when you look at the series itself, it's a great sign of things to come for Dallas, because that LA team is not only a championship contender in a lot of people's minds, but in my opinion, they're the championship favorite. So for the Mavericks to be able to take 2 games off of that team despite losing Kristaps Porzingis during that series is a fantastic sign for them, and just adds more positivity to a year that was always going to be kind of a growth year for this roster. They hadn't made the playoffs since 2016, which is an extremely long drought under the Mark Cuban era, and now they're kind of going into next season as a team that everybody knows about. Everybody knows that this team is legit. Everybody knows that they can score, and a 7th seed is not a small accomplishment in a very tough Western Conference this year, and in a conference it looks to be very tough next year as well. And it's pretty easy to say that the Mavericks had a fantastic season. Luka turned himself into a player that is going to be in the MVP conversation for years to come, and as a whole, they have a pretty clear path to contention, and maybe even multiple paths over the next couple of years. But of course, we have to begin by talking about Luka Doncic. And after his rookie season, I think people were pretty clear on the idea that this guy's going to be a really good NBA player. But for him to come out and play the way that he did, not only this regular season, but this postseason, to start the year looking like an MVP caliber player this year at just 21 years old, had some injury issue stuff throughout the year, which is a little bit concerning with some of the ankle injuries and things like that, but was able to recover from those and have a fantastic first round series against the Clippers, especially when you consider the context of them having 2 of the best wing defenders in the entire league in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, being one of the better defensive teams in the entire league with length and athleticism to cover up a lot of mistakes on that end, and losing Kristaps Porzingis in the middle of the series. From a statistical and an impact standpoint, I don't know what else you could have asked for out of Luka Doncic outside of a little bit more efficiency in the playmaking and the shooting numbers, but really you're asking too much at that point for a 21-year-old, and the expectations are sky high for him, not only going into next season, but for the rest of his career. However, the most important question on this entire roster for me right now is what the Mavericks think of Kristaps Porzingis. Is he a good enough player to be the number 2 option on a championship team? Is he good enough alongside Luka Doncic for this team to be contending for titles? I don't think there's a question at all that Luka is good enough to be the number 1 guy on a championship team. But how does Kristaps Porzingis fit into that? Is he good enough defensively? Does he provide enough offensively outside of floor spacing to be able to carry this team when Luka is off the floor? And of course, most importantly, is KP going to be able to stay healthy? Those are all really important questions that the Mavericks are going to evaluate and have to ask themselves, because that's really what drives their direction moving forward in terms of where they go this offseason and next, and how they build this team around Luka, is whether or not they think KP can be that 2nd guy. But first, let's go ahead and look at their options for improvement this offseason. And at first glance, things look really good for Dallas going into next year. They're going to be able to bring back their entire roster with the exception of guys like JJ Barea, guys that aren't really that impactful in their rotation, and they're going to be able to add their 1st round pick this year as well to this roster, and maybe have a mid-level exception in there as well if they wanted to bring in a veteran. But regardless, they're in a good position to bring back this roster, maybe be a little bit healthier as well. Guys like Dwight Powell, obviously Luka was banged up at certain points, KP missed the postseason series. Certain players on this roster were missing down the stretch for this group, and with some internal improvements and better health, plus the addition of that 1st round pick, they should be better next year. And that 1st round pick is really critical that they get something of value there, because remember, they owe their 2021 and 23 1st round picks to the Knicks as a result of the Kristaps Porzingis trade. Now, as you look at this roster for next year, if they wanted to move some pieces around and potentially complete a trade to add more pieces around Luka and KP, they certainly could look to do that. But really, when you look at this roster, they already have so many players that complement a star duo like Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic so well that I don't know that it's going to be a priority to really shuffle all those pieces around. They've got guys that can shoot, that can defend, they play in the front court, they play in the back court, they play on the wing. It doesn't really matter. They've got a lot of pieces around these two guys, and really it's going to be about adding either a third star piece or just more complementary options as we move into the offseason of 2021. And I keep bringing up that 2021 offseason because that's really what is so critical for this team being a championship contender moving forward. Because as you look at their payroll for that offseason, really they're only going to be losing in terms of significant pieces, Tim Hardaway Jr. and a couple of other guys, and they're going to have $30 million in cap space that offseason while still having Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic under contract. And if you're looking at the textbook on how to rebuild a team and how to put together a payroll, the Dallas Mavericks have pretty much written the textbook. Yeah, they don't quite have max contract space in the summer of 2021, but they're a good team now. They're competing for a playoff spot. They've got a bright young star, Luka Doncic, a nice complementary option as a star alongside him and Kristaps Porzingis. Plenty of other complementary players as well on nice middling salary deals, and the opportunity to bring in a near max player in free agency in the summer of 2021 while Luka Doncic is still on his rookie contract. This is exactly what you want to try and do, and a big part of why this team is, in my opinion, the team of the future in the NBA. If they didn't have this free agency option, they'd still have the opportunity to be really, really good moving forward with the internal growth of Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, but the ability to bring in a third guy is so critical to this team, potentially becoming a super team of sorts in the future. And we all know that the summer of 2021 is a loaded free agency class, but as always for Dallas, they're going to be at the top of the list for those second tier guys. They're not going to get, these super high all-NBA caliber guys that are available during that summer. However, there are three names that I would look at to keep in mind for this roster. Victor Oladipo and Drew Holiday primarily, and then on the back end of that, Mike Conley as well. I'd imagine they prioritize the first two names if they can with the cap space that they have that offseason, because those guys can provide some things for them on both ends of the floor. And offensively, this team is already pretty loaded, so to get a player that can help that offense, but then also provide defensive value, assuming that both of those guys are healthy, and Oladipo and Holiday would be huge for this team. Now, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to get either of those guys, or that either of those guys are even going to hit free agency. They could be re-signed before them or re-signed with those teams that off season, but still, those are certainly options. That's one path. You can go get your third star guy with your near max money. You can dump a couple of contracts if you really want to get to max money, or if you think Kristaps Porzingis is a good enough second star that you don't need that third star caliber guy, you could split up that around $30 million in cap space to bring in more complementary options, more shooting, more defense, more rim defense, whatever you think this roster needs. And you could do it by bringing in a guy for $20 million and someone else for 10, three different guys at $10 million. You can split it up however you wanted to, and that is certainly an option. Now, just based off how the NBA typically goes, I would imagine that they're going to put as much effort as they can into bringing in whoever that third guy is, whether it's Holiday, Oladipo, or whatever, because that's generally what NBA teams try and do. They try and get their three stars, and they've got enough complementary options on the roster already under contract for those following seasons that they'll still be good. They won't completely lack depth by any means. And if they are able to do that, if they're able to bring in a third guy or even multiple complementary options, this is going to be a team to be reckoned with for years and years to come, assuming they can stay healthy and assuming that Kristaps Porzingis is a good enough second option in Dallas. But regardless of the path that they take in that offseason of 2021, assuming they stay healthy, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I know that as we talk about free agency, whether it's Mavs fans or just NBA fans in general, you're probably sitting there thinking, we've seen this before. Dallas has been in position to bring in big time free agents in the past, and it's never really worked, and that's true. But they've also never had Luka Doncic on the roster in any of those previous free agency situations. And I think that helps them and hurts them. For one, it helps them because obviously guys can see that one, Luka's super fun to play with, but also as long as he's there, this is going to be a 50-win team in the Western Conference. Even with the current roster construction, just from that internal growth, if they're healthy, this is a 50-win roster. And if you're Victor Oladipo or you're Drew Holiday and you show up, you know that you can take that team to the next level, potential 60-win team and a championship contender. However, I do think this hurts them at times as well, because I just don't think that any of the top guys in general are going to go to Dallas, but also to play with Luka when he's already established himself as the guy there in Dallas, which I think is why they're going to be in contention for some of those second tier guys, which honestly isn't the end of the world. It's not necessarily a bad thing because Luka is already so good as the primary focal point of the team. You don't really need another one of those guys. You need someone like Oladipo or Holiday or even Mike Conley as well if they wanted to go that direction at the end of the day. And this is going to be a super fun team to watch over the next couple of seasons. This coming season is going to be just another growth year. They're going to try and improve their record, improve their players, work on making sure that their young guys are developing, especially the first round pick that they're getting this year. Potentially make a move if there is one available. I would definitely expect them to be aggressive because that's just Mark Cuban's style of ownership. But really, the season for them is going to be the 2021-22 season. Whatever star, whatever options they bring in during free agency, assuming these guys stay healthy, is going to make this team a championship contender for years to come. And I can't wait to see it because I love the Mavericks and I love watching Luka Doncic play basketball. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.